Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is StarDrive 2. It's a 4X space strategy game by the developer Zero Sum Games, which consists of a single guy, quite impressively. And he also developed StarDrive 1, which I had a look at in the beta. And my conclusion was it had some promise, but it wasn't really performing well, it was pretty buggy, and there were a lot of balance issues and issues with the AI and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, those issues never really got fully resolved, and the game is now considered abandoned by most people. The developer moved on to StarDrive 2. Now, as to why StarDrive 1 was abandoned is up for debate. There isn't a lot of concrete information. The only info I actually found was from an interview in 2013 that indicated that the problems with the game weren't actually fixable within the current engine. I'd even heard a rumor floating around that engine had actually been abandoned entirely, but I'm gonna be honest, I can't find a source for that. Whatever the case, all that really matters to you as the consumer is that StarDrive 1 was abandoned before it was properly fixed, which is a black mark against the developer and something that you should bear in mind. Now the question is, does StarDrive 2 redeem the series? We're going to find out. Quick look at the options menu before we begin. Very little to say about this. I mean, this is nothing, really. It's a very poor options menu, honestly. AA, visual quality. I turned AA off because the performance of this game is not great, I'm afraid. Full screen on or off, VSync, resolution. You can disable the Galactic News Network, which can get a little bit annoying after a while, and that's basically about it. And no UI customization, nothing like that. Pretty threadbare, frankly. Okay, I'm going to load into a campaign. I've put about 16, 17 hours into StarDrive 2, and that's kind of about how long it takes to deliver your first impressions on a game of this sort of scale. Okay, let's jump on in. Now, the biggest difference with StarDrive 2 compared to the original is that StarDrive 2 is turn-based, whereas StarDrive 1 was real-time. And that meant that all of the combat went on the galactic map, like right here, for instance. There was no, oh, we're gonna zoom into a different area now. That never happened. You actually fought on the map, which in itself was actually kind of great, and there were a number of advantages to that system. Unfortunately, they've abandoned that. I say they, he has abandoned that. This is not something that is in the game anymore. That's actually quite disappointing, frankly. I am not too pleased by that because the real-time element and the on-map combat, as well as the ability to directly control your flagship and fly it around, was one of the best parts of that game. And that's no longer the case. That's unfortunate, isn't it? I would have certainly preferred that it were. So what we have now is a more standard 4X turn-based space strategy game, and the influence of Master of Orion was obvious within the first game, StarDrive, particularly when you were dealing with the various races. If I head over to this menu right here, the politics menu, you'll notice these races, and I can go and, say, have a word with these guys. Yes, Space Bears. Wonderful. These are all animations and screens and music completely reused from the original game. In fact, I think there's only one extra race in StarDrive 2, otherwise everybody else is pretty much identical. So you've got the Kulrathi, which are an obvious take on the Bullrathi from Master of Orion 2. And there are a number of other races. I think there's like the Drelocks or whatever are very similar. In fact, almost all of the races are lifted in ways from Master of Orion 2, which is in itself fine because that game is quite old now and it's nice to have some imitators for a very good game like that. But there hasn't been any real advancement, and this is what I'm going to be talking about a great deal in this video. Has the game advanced from StarDrive 1, and then more to the point, standing on its own 2 feet, is this game actually worthy of your attention? Unfortunately, my conclusion on that is going to be mostly no, and there are a number of different reasons for that. We'll start with performance. The game doesn't run very well. There are a number of situations where the frame rate will tank. I'm going to try and see if I can make it happen, just kind of replicate what I saw. In fact, it already has. As soon as I went into the screen, the frame rate cut in half. And once I start adding things, if I start, say, let's say I want to just put a bunch of, like, small fuel cells on this ship, the frame rate decreases. It's now down to 20, because I've put too many items on the screen. That should never happen. I don't know what the hell's wrong with the engine, but it's ridiculous that that occurs. And combat also has drops in frame rate as well. The galactic map is usually okay, but running on a machine that's as powerful as mine, you would not expect this game to run as badly as it does, and there are almost no options to customize. So it's very, very difficult to get the game running properly because you just don't have that many options. You only have a couple of different presets. Anyway, while we're in the ship design section of the game, let's have a quick look at it. It is very similar to StarDrive 1, with the exception that you cannot customize most of the firing arcs anymore. And I assume that's probably for balance and design reasons. So if I say build a... let's just reset this. There we go. I want to put plasma torpedoes on this battleship. Okay, these are their firing arcs. If I put sideways plasma torpedoes, these are their firing arcs. I can get an arc extension buff if I want to pay more. So I can arc extend it then. You'll notice down here is the arc. So this now fires at a 180-degree angle and so on and so forth. But that's about it. Outside of that, the design is very, very similar to the original. And honestly, the original's design was really quite good. There were a couple of issues with it, like the giant things like the star bases. They took forever to design because they had so many little spots. He has fixed that by removing the ability to design any orbital things whatsoever. I'm not sure that was the best solution, because unfortunately the star bases in this game are very, very weak, and you can't build any orbital defenses whatsoever now. It used to be the case that you could build like little orbital platforms, and when ships flew by them in real time, as they did in StarDrive 1, then you would be able to just fire with them and everything would just happen in real time, which is great. But now that you have to move onto a battle map in order to fight, that's been made irrelevant. So he actually stripped out a fairly large portion of the game there, which I found to be rather disappointing. And I thought that the strong defense helped with the fact that you could literally attack pretty much anywhere as long as you had the fuel to do it. So there weren't really any battle lines. You know, the territory really meant nothing. And it was nice that you could build that sort of defensive stuff. Now, if you don't have a fleet within range, you are going to lose that planet almost 100% of the time to anything that at least has some firepower, because the stations barely scale. You know, I've had battle stations, which is the second tier, and they're very expensive. These big space stations die to a few ships, no problem at all. In fact, I've even had them auto-resolve against little pirate ships and die. It's just really ridiculous. Anyway, design-wise, you're looking to deal with things like the power output. Every ship needs engines. Every ship needs to have 75% of its slots minimum taken up with modules. You need ammunition if you're using weapons like this, so currently, like, this would take 79 seconds worth of firing to drain my ammo. I could put ordnance storage on here. There we go. And suddenly now it's going to take a lot longer than that. And the ammo is persistent. So unless you go into your own territory and get resupplied, then if you're having prolonged operations in enemy territory, you could end up running out of ammo. So you could also get energy weapons. So if I put down a couple of antimatter reactors there, you'll see, hey, power generation. And if I then start dumping disruptor cannons around the place, you'll see how much power is used. And you also need power capacitors to hold on to that. It's very self-explanatory, and these screens do provide, for the most part, everything you need, with one very key exception. It doesn't tell you how tough the ship is. So if I put on something like Class 3 Shield, you'll see that's 41,400 hit points. Okay, so let's just dump it here. Now, what would be nice, let's say I've just put a second one on, and a third one. What would be nice is if there were any way whatsoever to see how many hit points each area on the ship had cumulatively. I want to know how tough my ship is, because you can get hit in the front, and that can be damaged and so on and so forth. There's nothing to really give you that indicator. I'd also like to be able to see firing arcs all at the same time, but you can't do that either. Now, it is unfortunately... I mean, this is useless. What's the point in this button? You'd think, oh, there's going to be an overlay that has useful info. Nope. No, there isn't. So it's pretty damn threadbare, frankly. There's also a few things which seem to have tooltips which aren't adequate. Like, for instance, I think it's main engineering claims it provides damage control. But if I read the tooltip, it claims that, oh, it makes you move faster, and it reduces your power consumption. It's like, well, where's the damage control? You're claiming it provides damage control, but apparently it doesn't. So the descriptions on a lot of these things are not exactly as good as they should be. So it can be a little bit confusing when you start designing ships as to what things actually do. Anyway, it would be nice to also have a way to test your ships. That would be great, because I've designed ships before and then just had them completely destroyed in battles, because as it turns out, they just weren't well designed. I really had no way of knowing that. It would be nice to be able to, say, take them out for a test run and shoot some target dummies with them or something like that, but there's no way to do that. Anyway, let's jump out of that. Outside of that, you have a basic fleet management screen right here, which allows you to see which fleets you have and how many command points they take. And you can also then refit directly from this screen. And what that means is the fleet's going to fly to the nearest planet and try to refit. Say if I wanted to refit my disruption cruisers to driver frigates, for instance. I could do that, and they'd fly to the nearest planet. The problem is, they fly to whatever planet is closest, and it doesn't matter whether or not that planet actually has the facilities to refit them. So earlier on in this game, I had a fleet of battleships, and I had 3 battleships disappear because they flew to the nearest planet which didn't have a starbase which could build battleships. So they just vanished completely, and they never came back. And I don't know what's going on with that, but that was absolutely ridiculous. And there's also a few problems with if you send things into refit, they disappear, and then if a planet gets conquered, then all your ships vanish as well, which I think is a little ridiculous. You know, it would be perhaps nice to at least let them fight. I think that would be kind of reasonable there. Anyway, let's look at a few more mechanics here. Let's have a look at the planet management screen. So what you have here is a very basic Master of Orion clone set of mechanics. As in, you have 3 kinds of civilian workers you can use. You can either have farmers, workers, or scientists. That's going to generate food, and this food can be moved around with freighters, which is the same as the last game. A nice little system, honestly. It's quite elegant. It allows you to very easily send excess food automatically to other planets, which gets over a lot of the problems that games like Master of Orion 2 had, whereby you had to really micromanage certain worlds, and trying to populate worlds which didn't have great farmland was a complete waste of your time. And then you've got your workers here, and they generate pollution, which has to be managed. This basically stops you from spamming too many workers. You've got to research technology to reduce your pollution, because you get wastage there. And scientists, which generate research. I mean, it's really that simple. Now, you've also got a number of different hexes, which you can build on. There's really, I mean, outside of being able to just demolish certain buildings, this screen serves no practical purpose. If you get enough tech that you eventually fill this up, then you can demolish buildings, but I mean, that is really about it. There's the way that you organize your planet is automatic. There's no point whatsoever in doing it manually. You can also assign a leader as well, which allows you to acquire various bonuses. This one, for instance, is an environmental leader, so reduces pollution by 30% and so on and so forth. You can hire up to 4 leaders at once. They're kind of useful, although what would have been incredibly nice, and I think is a silly feature to miss, is an automatic governor system. Once you start to get a lot of planets, especially when you populate new planets and try to colonize them, building things up is a complete and total pain in the arse, because you have to do it manually every single time. And there are quite a lot of buildings. I mean, these are the number of buildings that I've got right now, and I'm maybe halfway through the tech tree. So there's a lot of stuff to build. So whenever you set up a new colony, it's like, all right, I gotta build this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and you've got to do it in a specific order, because otherwise the colony won't grow at the optimal rate, and it becomes a giant pain in the arse. Auto management would have been phenomenal here. I don't know why he didn't include it, but it's not there, and that upsets me. And it makes managing colonies a pain in the arse, and frankly, I don't want to be an expansionist race, because I would be spending too much time micromanaging, which was a problem that Master of Orion 2 had as well, and more modern games have tried to fix that. This one seems to have forgotten how to do that, which is unfortunate. The Empire Management screen makes its return, which is nice, because this is a good screen which gives you a nice overview of everything, tells you exactly what your different colonies are providing here. You can also order them, and you can check, hey, this is the one that has the most production, this one has approval problems, this is one that makes the most money, and you can also build from this screen as well, which is nice. So this makes managing things a little easier. You can also do things like buying for cash and so on and so forth. And you can also check out any planet that you've scouted. So let's say I wanted to find the largest planet that I can populate. It's currently a 3. Yeah, most of the planets have been taken at this point. So it's currently a 3 max population. What if I want a rich planet? I can do that. This is an ultra-rich asteroid belt that I could go and populate, and so on and so forth. It's nice. And you can... There are a few filters. Not too many, but a few. This Empire screen works fine. It was working fine in the previous game, though, as well. So that doesn't really surprise me all that much. You also have a tutorial menu here. The game's fairly easy to understand. Not really too much to worry about there. And then finally, you also have diplomacy and... your espionage. Espionage is basic, to say the least. You build a bunch of spies, you have spies that defend you from espionage, and then you can send spies to go and spy. You get intelligence points, and then you can spend them on 4 different operations. And that's it. That's a very, very, very basic system. Not really too much to talk about there. A little bit disappointing. I would have hoped to see an expansion of the espionage system, but again, we didn't really see anything of the sort. That comes on to the key problem with this game. It didn't really improve anything. It, in fact, changed the game in a very real respect, in a way that I think a lot of people probably don't like. Because, hey, I loved the fact that the original game was real-time. That was great. That was awesome. It made the combat much, much quicker. And since everything was going on at the same time, you didn't have to pause the game every time you went into a fight. I'm trying to engage this ship in a fight here, but it's running away right now. Which meant that things just moved along a little bit quicker, which was great. Alright, actually, let's go and intercept that fleet. It's heading in this general direction. We should be able to get there. Hostile fleet has been spotted. Yes, we already know it's that one. We saw it a few turns ago. We're going to go and try and catch up to this, and I'll show you what the battle screen is like. It's not too good, I'm afraid. I'd love to tell you otherwise. So you get a bit of a loading screen going into the battle, and you get to deploy your fleet, which is janky in many ways. Okay, let me count the ways in which I don't like this. Now, the original game had the ability to create fleets and then customize the fleet's formation so that their fleet would always stay in a certain formation and perform certain tactics. That was great. This game doesn't have anything of the sort. They've completely stripped that out. And what you have is this basic real-time battle screen here. When I start, the ships are going to move towards each other and they're going to shoot. And that's really about it. You can control at what range they engage at. The annoying thing about this is that you have to do it individually per ship. So if you have a large fleet, micromanaging this is like, okay. Okay. You get the idea, right? You see why this is a bad idea? Why on earth can't I select multiple ships of the same type and have them all change their range at once? That would be great. In fact, actually giving orders to ships at once can only really be done by bandboxing and right-clicking. You can tell them to retreat en masse, you can tell them to stop moving, and you can change their attack behavior between move and hold position, and then frontal and broadside target facing. That's it. There's really nothing else. There are also these clickables, and again, you can't use these en masse. So, let's say I want to boost my disruption cruisers forward. Let's just begin the fight in order to make that happen. I want to boost my disruption cruiser forward. Click, click, click. You see why this is a bad idea? Yeah, it's pretty poor. So, you have to micromanage in the worst possible way, because micromanagement doesn't really help you too much in this game. Like, you can't really do too many skillful maneuvers. Once you move into a range, you're gonna automatically fire on stuff, and that's really about all there is to it. I mean, it's like, yeah, I can move my ships around a little bit and maybe dodge some missiles, maybe. Or you can just get ECM and that wouldn't even be a problem anymore, but outside of that, that is all this battle system involves. This is not as good as the original battle system. I mean, the original battle system was doing the same thing as this, but it was doing it in real time on the galactic map, which was a lot better, and I could forgive it being a little bit more simplistic on that basis. But if you're going to have a dedicated battle screen, you should at least put some effort into creating more complex mechanics, and he didn't. And in fact, actually, it's more basic than it was in the first place. That's exactly the wrong thing to do, in my honest opinion. And it's made battles tedious. I'd love to just auto-battle, but the game is hideously unreliable when it comes to auto-battles. I have had a fleet of battle cruisers, like battleships, they're the second largest ship in the game, lose to 2 pirate raider frigates. Yeah, just in auto-battle, for no reason. Like, basically there's no way in a million years. I actually did that fight again through an autosave, and I killed them in 1 salvo. And yet, I lost my entire fleet in auto-battle. Ridiculous. So you have to go through this, and there's no way to speed the battle up. There's no speed button or anything like that. So, oh god, battles are tedious as a direct result. They really, really are. You're just going to be sitting there. It's like, click the next target, click the next target. Oh my. I think that battles were some of the most fun things to be had in 4X games, especially real-time 4X games, but this is one of the weakest battle systems I've seen, I'm afraid. I am really quite disappointed by it, and it's such a step back from the original. It really, truly is. The game's also bloody buggy. It really, really is. I've had things disappear for no apparent reason. There are problems in terms of attacking planets. And the most annoying bug that I've had recently is I was bombarding a planet to soften it up for a ground invasion. But the problem was, I'd go and bombard it, and then my fleet couldn't do it again the next turn. Like, you can see it right now, I couldn't click on the planet. Like, the right click didn't move. The only way I could do it is by moving the fleet away, which takes 1 turn, and then moving it back, and then clicking again. So if I wanted to bombard and then invade, you couldn't do that on the same turn because you couldn't click the same planet twice. I don't know why that is, but it is a really nasty and annoying bug. It's utterly infuriating. And there have been a few other minor things that I've noticed. I mean, performance is probably the worst problem with it, but there are a bunch of people reporting a lot of minor bugs that I personally haven't experienced too much, but the game feels very much not ready for market. There's one other thing to mention, and let's see if I can show it to you. Do I have any troop transports near? Can I maybe move some troops? Oh, there's no troops on that planet. Let's see if I can find something that has troops. That's got 2 troops. I'm just trying to find some troop transports here so that I can show you how this works. Let's just launch these guys. Oh, can't do it because I need freighters. All right. Let's just build some freighters for a second, and then I can show you ground combat. This, I think, was the biggest botch in the game. Ground combat in most 4X games is extremely basic, and most cases it's actually automated for the most part. You just throw your troops at it, and maybe you can watch it happen, but that's really about it. Here's the thing, I think actually watching it happen was maybe the right call, because he tried to create a turn-based tactical ground combat game, and it's really not very good. I'm sending troop transports over here now, so we're just gonna spam. Oh, something's entering our system. In fact, we might be able to... Oh, nope, never mind, he's just going to his own place, whatever. Now, that sounds good in theory, doesn't it? It sounds like a pretty cool idea. Like, yes, that's fantastic. I can actually do ground combat. You can? Yes. I'm probably just going to auto-battle this thing, actually. I'll probably lose it. I'm pretty sure I have more tech than they do, and I should win this fight. But needless to say, I didn't. Of course I didn't. Of course I didn't. Oh, man. I wonder what happens if I attack with my big fleet. It's like I have lots of ships that are high level here. Oh, they've run off. Never mind. So, if I go and just attack this planet, I don't really care about this game at this point. Destroy that. There we go. Yep, destroy that. There we go. Oh, it has no defenses. Great. Well, that's pointless then. So I guess we can capture this planet. Well, he must have landed something on the other planet. So I guess we can try that. Oh, you can't click it. Great. So let's waste the turn moving. And let's move back. There we go. And I'm just going to fight here. I'm going to lose this because he outnumbers me, but I'm going to show you this ground combat. It is not very good. So you have to move each troop individually, and it's super basic. So basically you move into range and you shoot. And you have maybe a special ability, and that's it. The combat is not very good at all, and it takes far too long. I mean, the amount of HP that a lot of these guys have is ridiculous, and the game has huge balance problems as well. For instance, there's a tech that's quite late on the tech tree called a defensive battery, and what it does is it puts a gigantic kind of mechanoid minigun on the battlefield, and it's like, yeah, great, I've got this huge gun that's going to help me defend my planet. So it turns out, that gun does no damage to anything wearing heavy armor. Heavy armor is a tier 0 tech that you get at the start of the game that can be equipped on any unit for free. I am not kidding. So you do no damage with it. Basically, that entire building, which is expensive and takes a bunch of research, is utterly useless. Not to mention that customizing your ground units... I'm just going to forfeit this now, I'm sorry, this is just too depressing. Customizing your ground units is a giant pain in the ass. The game automatically spawns infantry if you have an infantry base, but you have to individually kit them out every single time they spawn. So, let's give you an example of that. Come on, get out of this loading screen. Let's go over to Istio 1. Hey, it has ground forces. Upgrade. Oh, these are all randomly generated, even though I deleted all the loadouts that they're currently using. So the only loadout that I use is my best loadout, which is this one. So if I want to equip it, I click this, and I have to do it on every single infantry unit every time a new infantry unit spawns. Why? That's the sort of thing you should be able to set, and you can't set it. You cannot. So this is just pointless busy work, and I've had plenty of instances where I think, oh great, I've got tech, I've got a rail rifle, I've got bone weave and smart blood, you know, some high-tech stuff. Oh, actually, my planet just spawned a bunch of units with basic laser rifles, or with a combat knife. And a freaking medkit. And it does this every time. You have to do this every time a new infantry unit spawns. It's infuriating. Unbelievably bad. And just minor little automation things, like the fact that a planet will not default to trade goods when it's not building anything. And trade goods is the standard thing that's in almost every 4X game, where it transfers production to money. Now, when you're not building anything, surely it should do that automatically. But it doesn't. It doesn't. I just cancelled it. Oh look, now we're making less money. We're making 45 instead of the other ones. Why? They're literally sitting there doing nothing. There's no downside to having trade goods running. It should be running by default all the time. This is the sort of thing that you have to do in order to make these games more enjoyable. There's been plenty of 4X games, including Master of Orion 2, by the way, especially when it came to the tactical turn-based battles, that did a piss-poor job of handling micromanagement. And lately, since then, we've had a lot of games that have said, right, let's do what we can to reduce pointless busy work. This game has taken several steps back from its prequel in that respect. Okay. That's a big giant laundry list of complaints, isn't it? Would I recommend it? No, not in its current state, I would not. I played a good amount of it, and I think I've only stuck with it this long because, one, I wanted to get a good first impression of it. I really wanted to know how the game ran later on. Oh, sorry, I forgot one more complaint. Diplomacy! Oh, good God, diplomacy. It is nigh on impossible to ever make proper peace with anybody that you have ever fought with. Because, essentially, military action against us stacks to ridiculous degrees and makes their tolerance of you less than 0. And it's basically impossible to get that tolerance back. Let's say I wanted to increase his tolerance. Okay, right, I'm going to donate you a technology. Well, I can't do that because I'm currently at war with him. But here's the thing, my tolerance for his race is 0, meaning I can't give him anything because my people won't agree with it. And even if I could do that, the amount of benefit that you get for donating technology, I've given about 10 free technologies to these guys, and they hate me. They hate me. Like, they're going to declare war on me probably within the next 50 turns. These guys declared war on me. I'm probably never going to manage to sort that out. And these guys are like minus 356 tolerance. And what's annoying more so than anything is that one of the only ways to really regain tolerance is by espionage and using spread propaganda. The problem is, every time one of your spies is caught, and that happens a lot, and there's no real way to actually fix that. You can get technologies which improve your spies, but it doesn't make that much of a difference. Every time that happens, it stacks a debuff in tolerance saying, we caught you spying on us. Literally, the last game that I played where I had all 4 factions declare war on me perpetually, they'd only ever declare peace for 25 turns. That was after I destroyed a number of their fleets, and then they'd ask for peace. I'd give them peace, and peace lasts for 25 turns, then they'd immediately declare war on me again. Infinite cycle. No way to fix it. I had the human race have 750 turns of like minus 200% tolerance because I spied on them in order to spread propaganda to make them like me. It's utterly broken. And the diplomacy system wasn't great in the first game. It's probably even worse here. It's fairly basic. If I want to contact him, it's like, hey, we're going to trade. But it's the tolerance system that annoys me the most, because it makes actually making friends and proper trades really, really hard. Like, let's say I want the food replicator technology. It's 6,600 value. It's like, okay, I'll give you several of my other technologies. It's like, oh, I need to add more. Okay. All right, well, I can do it at this point, but more often than not, what happens is, like, say I added, like, a third technology. It's like, no, my people won't agree with that anymore. That happens all the time. I've finally got myself into this little position where I'm okay with these guys enough to be able to maybe do some trades, but there are so many limitations, like making peace and even just setting up a basic small trade route takes so much work, and it's constantly fighting against your own tolerance levels, and there's really no way to fix it. Like, you can't invest in tolerance. The only way that you can really do it is to let it decay over time and maybe get some technologies and buildings which help. So you have so little control over your own diplomacy. Oh, God. All right. Okay. As I said, I think I've only played this game for as long as I have because I really like 4X space strategies. This is not a good 4X space strategy. It's a huge disappointment after the first one, which had a great deal of potential that ended up getting abandoned. There are plenty of games that play like this. I mean, in many ways, this game is extremely similar to games like Master of Orion and Galciv and so on and so forth. It takes elements from different games, obviously, but it's very, very similar to existing 4X that came before, whereas StarDrive 1 had some similarities, but it innovated with the real-time and on-map battles. And, of course, the ability to control your flagship directly. That was awesome. None of that's here. This is a huge step backwards. It's like he thought to himself, oh, I just can't do it. I'm going to make something a bit simpler. But it's a sequel. I'd expect an advancement, not steps back over the original. So, the game is played with balance problems, a bunch of ill-thought-out design decisions, and, unfortunately, so much hassle most of the time, and a bunch of reused assets from the original. Like, there's almost everything is reused from the original. I simply can't recommend it in its current form. That makes me sad, because, like I say, I do like these kind of games, but this is just several steps back, and there's a number of different games out right now, like Galciv 3, and like Star Ruler 2, and Distant Stars, Revenant Fleet, and so on and so forth that are in competition with this game. There are other choices that you can make. And hell, they just announced a new Master of Orion game as well. So right now, unless huge changes are made to StarDrive 2, no. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't recommend it. You know, I think I could probably go on for hours nitpicking all sorts of different things about this game, but I think you've got the point. Almost every system in this game is either underwhelming or broken. That's the main problem with it. And if all of your systems are not fun to use or just don't work, then your game doesn't work. It's all about expand, exploit, explore, exterminate, not in that order. And yet, when it comes to extermination, the battles are dull, and the planetary battles, the ground combat, is just insufferably boring. And when it comes to expanding and dealing with diplomacy, there's barely anything there either. Exploitation through espionage, barely anything there either. Oh, it's just too basic in too many ways. And even the basic stuff is not that well executed. I'm sorry. Like, I really do genuinely feel guilty when I say things like that, because I know he's a one-man dev and he worked really hard, but it doesn't matter because my philosophy is consumer first, as you're well aware, and I'm afraid this game in its current state is just not worthy of a recommendation. StarDrive 2, ladies and gentlemen, it's available for $30 on Steam or your regional equivalent. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.